I think the county could have Scott work on that by having a
A what?
I got it. Chair for folks with handicap to be able to go and use.
Oh.
Would be available for members.
It's a good thing for you to mention.
I know who he is. No, I do think that, I think between the
National Park has some.
they have a couple.
Hi again.
And then, when you guys use my apartment, like national parks, all the crap is set, as opposed to a place.
National Park was
I'm gonna call this meeting to order. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Have a roll call, please.
Mr. Aaron's absent. Mr. Behrens?
Here.
Mr. Christensen?
Present.
Mr. Frericks?
Present.
Mr. Godbout?
Present.
Ms. Lautner?
Present.
Mr. Noonan?
Here.
Mr. Popa?
Present.
Ms. Ross? Absent. Mr. Walter?
Here.
Okay. 8-2.
Is there any public comment? No. Okay, moving on to the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions?
Just a quick question. Was Mr. Aaron's excused?
He did not inform me that he was not going to be here.
Okay.
If nothing to add, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Support. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, moving on to action items. We got approval of the minutes first. First set is from February 1st, regular session. Hopefully everybody had a chance to look through them.
I move for their approval, Mr. Chairman, as presented.
Second?
Support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Moving on to March 1st, regular session.
I move we approve the minutes of the regular session, March 1st.
Second.
Support by John. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. I was downstate. I thought I had called in and asked to be excused. I probably just thought I did. So,
That's okay.
thank you.
Okay, moving on to the financials. Scott, you're up.
Financials, we're at 5.79, so we're budget. So we're in pretty good shape. We're just getting started.
Right. No, we
Nothing's happening at this point.
Yeah, it's just,
haven't turned the water on yet. No.
yeah, trash, phone, electric. What should say?
Is there any questions for Scott on the financials? If not, could we get a motion to approve?
Actually, is there some way we can get the financials ahead of the meeting so we can look at them before, instead of trying to go through them at the meeting?
We have to get them the day after the last day of the month. So I could, in effect, sent them out on Monday. So I'll note that. I'll ask accounting to provide that earlier.
Okay. Because I would much prefer to see them at my leisure at home.
Do we have a motion? Somebody support?
I made a motion.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to Four Farm Barn lease clarification and discussion. This is a follow-up from last month. We wanted some clarification from corporate counsel, and we have that. That would be, it's on page 14, is the letter back from corporate. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to read that. Laurel sent it out beforehand.
Let's see.
Thank you.
Steve, have you had a chance to see that?
I had not sent it to him.
Okay.
Is there an extra set he could just look at the email?
Yeah, grab a packet there and look at page 14. Or it starts on page 14.
So in summary, what is he saying?
He's saying we have no financial obligation
To support,
to support the barn.
we have no financial, meaning we can't do it?
We can, but we are not obligated
Right.
to.
Oh, okay.
Only the taxes.
Or insurance?
Yes, insurance.
So we could still ask the county to help support it, right?
Yeah, it could be done technically, but we just don't,
But
We
we're
don't
not
have-
legally liable to do that.
Right.
and that's what we were trying to clarify was if we had to, or we could if we got the support, but we're not obligated to.
So this would have to be like a separate line item and included in the budget when you do the budget?
Or a special ask for a special amount or something.
Obviously, that'll come to the fore when we do budgeting for 024 this coming June.
Correct.
Probably should have a discussion. I think, Laurel, don't we do a commission meeting and then immediately following?
In June,
In June? Immediately following, we have,
your executive committee meeting, as stated in the bylaws.
and to put together the budget items for 024. So that meeting, we should definitely, I think, have on the agenda this topic to give that committee some direction going into that budget.
But should we do that in May? Because we've got the letter, so in May we should say, let's push this, or wait till the June meeting.
Well, I think we're going to be, I don't know, I think the topic is appropriate in June. We have all the different things that are on the CIP and all the different committees that want to do this, that, and the other thing.
So June would be fine then.
It seems like a big chunk of the June meeting could be devoted to that overall topic to get us on the right page to move forward.
Is it the-
ask the county?
I'm a little bit confused. Is it the intent of this board to ask for a line item for the Poor Farm barn?
Well, that discussion will have to be made, we'll have to do that discussion at some point.
Okay.
And when,
had that discussion.
and when we do it is the question.
So we have a 9-page document here, lease agreement. Somewhere in the document, it says we have no legal obligation to split the finances.
Correct.
Where is that?
That was the very first page.
It's on the very first page.
Page 14.
Yeah, it's at the bottom.
About halfway down.
Oh,
above his
I'm
name.
sorry, I didn't get 14.
Page 14, and it's bottom.
I missed that part, sorry.
It's, Casey, my question
Ah,
is the committee.
Finances, I see. Okay.
Maybe this isn't Miles Kimmerly committee
See that?
issue. Maybe it's an issue because it's the poor
I
barn.
see it, yeah, no, I did. I thought it was part of.
But there's
financial.
been no committee recommendation that we asked for anything. Okay.
No, not to my knowledge.
So that question's open to this group, yes.
At this point, yes. And it would be a determination of this whole board whether we want to make that ask or not. And it. Go ahead.
This, I guess, looking back at the history of the Poor Farm Barn, the county didn't have extra money to spend on the Poor Farm Barn. And Parks and Recreation has never had money to spend on that barn. So I guess personally, I would hate to see us start that precedence of funding that barn because we have a really great thing going right now with that foundation. and it's all just being done with voluntary dollars. I would say that if we, as a Parks and Recreation, wanted to use that barn in some way for Parks and Rec, that would be a little bit different. But at present, we're really hands-off that as far as the Parks and Recs goes.
Yes. And I was in the process of working on this lease agreement with Chet and Steve right from the beginning. And it was my understanding through the whole process was to get the financial obligation off of the county and keep the barn there, or it was a donation to the Historical Society. It was never my understanding that we would be funding partners of the project. I'm not saying that we can't someday ask for a special sum, or if we had extra money out of our budget, and we chose to do that, but it was never the intent, to my understanding, to be a partner in the funding of the project.
Financially,
Yeah,
not
the
financially.
financial end of it. That was my understanding of the whole thing.
That's right.
There's some information that's going to be coming along. The group has hired an architect,
Right.
right?
Yes.
So that's a piece of information that we don't have yet. If I'm assuming that person hasn't finished what they're going to do, right? So that's it. Well, might be a little premature to be talking before we have information. At that point, we could give Steve some direction possibly if we start knowing numbers.
And that's correct. I don't have a problem with that.
Kind of building off what Melinda said and Casey too, say if we get a number, Steve brings a number and it's X, and we could look at X and say, whew, but maybe if the fundraising, now that there's a number, and fundraising always chases number, now we have a fundraising number to chase. If the fundraising got to a certain point, we would possibly consider chipping some in there. But without that, I don't know. We're kind of premature maybe.
It could be, until we have a number or something to ask for, I guess. I guess that answers the questions that we all as a board had from last month.
Yeah, I guess,
We were wondering if we have to, or if it's a choice.
right, and we do not. It's
And
a
we have
choice.
that. Do you have any other questions, Steve, at this point? Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions?
I just kind of had a point of a point to make, and that would be, I guess, that we all have our parks, and I know I sit on Old Settlers Park, and we've got a lot of things we'd like to do, but in the past couple of years, we got our playground, so we kind of stepped back, and we did some things with Veronica Valley, and we're doing some things with Miles Kimmerly. So, it's kind of a wait your turn for funding, because we don't have a big funding background. So I guess, that being said, our budget is already set for 2023.
Right.
And, so whatever's going to happen with that barn in 2023 would have to be just done by the fundraising of the Historical Society.
Okay.
One comment I will mention, that you had this, the architect came out here to make some adjustments to make it available for people to use the building, and the recommendations to do that came from the government, right? Because you, Casey, and Steve met with someone. I'm vague on that.
There's part of a board there is a board formed to look at the use for the barn, and that's where the architect is stemming from.
And what requirements to make it a safe place, but that doesn't, having them recommending that doesn't mean that we have to necessarily pay for those improvements. It's like if you have a home inspection and they say you can't build this without these recommendations, that doesn't mean they're going to pay for part of it.
That'd be
So
correct.
I understand what we're saying, but still, however, having said that, and I agree with the money situation, we don't have money to do anything. I have some pet peeve projects that I'd like to see funded, especially by that ARP money you mentioned, thank you. And that would be very nice to use for other projects, and there's so many that the three different parks have. But having said that, that poor barn, that property, it's on a 25-year lease, I believe. It's still part of the park.
It is. Okay, any other questions on the Port Farm barn? Nothing else to comment on, Steve?
I would like to comment.
Sure.
The idea that the county does not have the money, I don't believe that. The county has the money. They just choose to spend it on other things rather than the park. And I believe that the parks are desperately underfunded all around. And so I'm going to be an advocate from here on, and I have been, to make sure the parks are adequately funded, which they haven't been.
I don't think there's anybody up here that disagrees with you. Okay, moving on, we've got the Maple Valley Nursing Home agreement and, the contract, which is coming due at the end of April, or expires at the end of April.
So page 28 is the start of this documentation. It includes the agreement to grant license, and actually, page 27. It's a synopsis of the legal opinion from counsel on this with a proposed recommendation. I did, as a courtesy, send an email to Mr. Casman to let him know that in anticipation of the county board looking at this issue based on your recommendation today, it would be on the county board's agenda for next Tuesday. The agreement to grant license expires at the end of this month.
And then it goes every 30 days after that, though. It doesn't automatically get pulled until we give 30 days notice that the license will expire at the end of that 30 days.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
So it's something that will keep going until we actually give them 30 days notice that the agreement is going to be terminated.
If you look at page 28, this is what's probably the
What
most,
page?
28. It's the page that probably most concerns you, and that is on the number 1, grant of license. The licensor, or the county, grants to the licensee, or the nursing home, the right to maintain, operate, repair, substitute, remove, enlarge, inspect, and replace sanitary sewer lines and drain field, da-da-da-da-da. And how this impacts us as a Parks Commission is the Miles Kimmerly Park Committee intends to build a paved loop trail that would cross directly over this. So it's better to get this taken care of. I mean, you're still in your conceptual plan stages, which the board did approve, and you'll be meeting with Gosling to create a new conceptual plan. But this is like getting your ducks in a row by taking care of this. And we'll need to hear from them as to their timeline on providing an updated system.
Go ahead.
As far as the 30 days go, I thought we gave them notice over a year ago.
We told them that we would not renew the contract.
Right.
But
Right.
it states in this
It's
contract
gotta
that
be.
it has, it's revocable within 30 days notice after April.
So we
After
had
May
to
1st.
wait. So we
Right.
had to wait.
We
So
gave
you-
them a verbal heads
Okay.
up so they could start thinking.
And this
Yes.
requires a 30
Yes,
days
we
written
did.
notice.
Yeah.
of
Got it.
license.
So
So-
May 1st, we could give them the written notice,
Okay.
and by June 1st, it would,
Has to
you know,
be.
I'm not saying that that's what we have to do, because obviously
Right.
there's nothing in place, and it's probably not going to happen that quickly.
Right.
I think we could have given them the written notice on April 1st for termination at the end of April.
Right. But Laurel has been in touch with Mr. Casman,
Yeah.
and they supposedly have a plan, but nobody knows this plan yet. So it would be nice.
Knows his plan?
Go ahead.
So if we gave them 30 days notice, can we give them 30 days notice so we're going to start charging them by the day until they get their septic field out?
Potentially. You'd have to go through corporate, that'd be
Yeah,
a,
we have to figure that out.
Well-
Left-handed thought,
yeah.
Fine and fee.
And I don't know if we're necessarily ready for that. This is the way I see it. The contract's going to be terminated. I don't think this board has any interest in renewing it. Obviously, the new septic field isn't ready at the facility. So I'm curious to hear what their plan is, because they said that in December that they had a plan getting together, trying to get this all in a row. Who knows where that's at or whatever. We are not interested in any contract extension, and it's going to be 30 days by 30 days. And
Money's a huge incentive to get things done.
I agree. And that may be what it comes to. But my thought is, what's your plan? Give us a date. And if it's not done by that date, within a reasonable amount, 30 days of variance or something like that, then we're gonna start charging you.
I guess I'd like to hear what Laurel had discussed with John Casban, and if we're gonna be making decisions, John Casban should be here and notified, maybe he was, but what was the discussion? And I don't wanna make a decision knowing that these people don't have something ready, but I like the idea of pushing them. I'm not in favor of abandoning it right now, but what was your discussion with him?
It was this morning, and he wanted to know if he could get on the agenda regarding the septic system. I said, well, it's already on the agenda. The Parks Board will be discussing it today, and if he'd like to come for that meeting, the meeting begins at 9. That's all I said.
The meeting what?
Begins at 9 for next week for the Board of
Next
Commissioners.
board meeting.
Or you're gonna have them in front of that and not here?
Yes, because this is ultimately up to the Board of Commissioners. This was signed by the Board of Commissioners. Bob Holly was the
True,
chair.
but the Board of Commissioners is gonna ask us, was this discussed at Parks and Rec?
And that's what I'm hoping, that we're gonna get a motion out of this board today to say we do not recommend renewal of this contract. We have been in touch. Chet contacted him a year ago and said that, listen, you got a year's time coming here. Expires next year in April. We don't have any interest in renewing your contract or
In fact,
extending.
I want to say it was even before COVID when we first met, and we let him know, we're just meeting informally, just let you know, this expires in a couple years, and the parks will not be renewing the grant.
Yeah, we sat in
Yep,
room 2.
we did.
So this has been several years worth of contact and knowing that this is coming
They
up
know,
and
it's
reminding.
coming. Yeah, we were playing with them.
Well, I think a
I
couple
think,
hours
didn't we-
notice is a short notice to give a guy that kind of thing to tell us where he's at. I'd like him to tell us where he's at before we go to the Board of Commissioners. If I was on the Board of Commissioners, I'd be asking the same thing. But anyway,
Don't we have to make a recommendation to revoke the license?
If you look at
technically?
the bottom of page 27,
there was a motion.
I have a proposed recommendation. And I left the date open, depending on how you want to address that. There's another thing to consider for all this, and that is, I took the liberty of contacting the health department to find out what the best course of action on remediating this is. And they said to pump it out, crush up the remains, and haul it out, and then put all the groundwork back over.
Right.
That is the best way to do it. And that will cost some money.
It won't be cheap.
No.
Is that the best way or is that legal way?
Well, if you're gonna put a trail over the top of that, it makes sense to make sure that,
The septic tank is over on the nursing home's side, right?
no.
Just the field.
Just the field is on our side.
I thought we had 2 tanks on our property.
Well, there's a tank.
No, there's 2 tanks,
Oh, okay.
and they alternate between the 2. Yeah.
Melinda?
I talked with the owner myself at least, I think it was at least a year and a half ago. And I'm like, gee, by the way, they did get with you to tell you that we won't be renewing the lease on the septic field, right? And he's like, yeah. He says, I had plans to, I think he wanted to expand the nursing home up behind, and when he expanded, he would have been doing a whole new system. But he says, you know, with COVID and everything, all those plans are on hold. And I said, well, you know, it's coming up, it's going to expire, you're still going to have to do something. And he said, well, can I ask for an extension? And I said, you can always ask for an extension. But I said, we do have plans for that park. And so my recommendation to this board is let's start the process. If we have to work with them a little while or even through the summer, I'm okay with that, just or as long as we can get the system built. But if we delay, I think it's going to set unfair expectations that it can just linger on.
There will be no incentive
Mhm.
to do this.
Yeah.
So we
You
need
talked to
we
who?
need to
You
come up
talked,
with
you
a
said
date.
Steve? I didn't quite hear that.
No, the owner, it was John.
You talked to John?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the motion recommends to the board to work with them and set a date to vacate the system.
But then add a date, no later than.
To be
Right,
vacated no later than
right.
Sunday.
I guess I don't like it. I'd like him to come here and see, and have him tell us
What do you need to know?
Well, I guess, you know, it's been.
how far along he is with this project.
It doesn't
Has he
really
started-
matter how far along he is with the project. We've been in contact with him for years, knowing that he's given us several different stories about what the scenario is in these talked about these plans and never actually, I don't think he's done a darn thing. I think
I
he's
don't
hoping
think
for a variance or
I
for
think-
an extension.
That's what I get.
Yeah.
And you might be right, but if you're on the road, or if you were on the county commissioners and you're sitting here, what date are you gonna pick?
6 months in my opinion, but
Yeah, I give them October 1st.
Mm-hmm.
that was my recommendation.
I'd say so too.
It gives them a whole
Gives them
summer to make
summer.
a system.
Absolutely, yep.
You don't want to put anything out.
Right.
No, and I'm not-
How long do they drag it out?
And I'm not interested in that
No,
by any means, but if you don't push this, it's gonna continue forever.
It wasn't like he didn't know that in 15 years he had to have something figured out.
Yes.
Well, we only gave him a couple hours
I
to
think,
show up at
um,
this meeting.
No, we didn't give him a couple hours. He, in my opinion, he doesn't need to be here to explain anything to me. He has had many years of
And
notice.
a lot of conversations.
He should have been well more prepared. I don't need to hear a sob story. I want it vacated and done. He knows you've had 15 years of leisure time of utilizing the county's property for free. It's time to do what needs to be done.
But okay, and I agree with you, we're asking the Board of Commissioners to work with the nursing home to determine a date to vacate.
I mean, we could make it where we're recommending that the Board of Commissioners execute what's required by the license to file the written notice that they are to vacate within 30 days.
30
Exactly.
days or 6 months?
30 days. The document says 30 days.
And I'm not sure where you're seeing
We have to
work
give-
with them on the date.
Well, that's
She's
in
got that in the
Laurel's
proposed
proposal.
motion. We don't have to,
Motion.
I
We don't
move to
have to use
recommend
that
that the Board of
To
Commissioners.
work with the nursing home to determine a date. We're asking the Board of Commissioners to work.
I see what you're saying now.
And I would like to come up.
We could strike those words.
absolutely. And you can say, what was it you just said,
If we're gonna work with him.
what was that term you just used?
I think technically we have to do the revoke.
Mm-hmm.
That's the word we have to use.
Yes, we have to
Yes.
revoke it.
But
And
I
we
see
can-
what,
We can put a date in here.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
You know, we can put a 6 months, or we could have put a year, but when it gets to the county board of commissioners, they're gonna put their own date in.
Right, but they're going to look at the recommendation of this board.
Right, that's what I'm trying to say. We gotta recommend.
I don't know, if you're gonna design and build a proper system for that, I think 1 year makes more sense than 6 months. I'm not sure, you know, if you tried to find somebody to design it,
Steve?
and then go ahead.
I just want to reiterate, the last correspondence we received was between Chet and John Jr., and he indicated that they were working with an architect to design something, and that was December 1st. So I think October is not a bad,
He's already in the
Yes,
process.
He said they had
Yeah.
plans. Yep.
Don,
he's a neighbor. I believe in being a good neighbor, but this guy has showed no faith in working with us. He could have showed up today if he was serious about wanting an extension, which I wouldn't give him anyway. But I really think he's had ample opportunity. 2 years ago, he was talked to. A year ago, he was talked to. He had plenty of time to take care of the situation. He hasn't. And I think he should be told he has to, his license is revoked in 30 days. I don't want his money. I don't think charging him. He probably wouldn't mind paying a nominal fee to keep
Right.
doing it for 6 months, 8 months, 2 years, who knows what.
And then
Not
we
that we're
would-
gonna get that paved loop trail in that quick, but I hope we would do. And if the opportunity arises that we can get it in for some reason, we want that ground to be settled and packed down and ready for us to use it. So I would say 30 days, and please find some alternative. You can put a septic field in, I don't know, it doesn't take a long time, does it, to put a septic
Bullshit, that
field in?
would take a year
I
with that
don't
kind of a
know.
workload on it and stuff.
Really?
It's
Well,
not a house septic system.
But he probably knows that, and he should have been aware of that. And I don't want to put him up and give him a hard time. There's people living there and whatnot, whatever.
Sometimes you need to give people a hard time to get stuff done.
Thank you.
And what was the date, Melissa, that you talked to him, around December?
No, it was August, so I know if last year was August 22, it was August of 21.
What? Oh, so he hasn't been refreshed lately, or?
Since by Chet.
It was
Since then by Chet.
It was
So
about
there
a year ago that.
It was at
the
least
last-
one time prior to August of 21, and I, in casual conversation, said, yeah, they did get a hold of you, and yeah, they did. And I'm working on it, that was August of 21.
And here it is,
And then-
2023.
And then since by Chet and others, so.
As I look at this recommendation or the motion, I would like it to read, I move to recommend to the County Board of Commissioners to revoke the license to Maple Valley Nursing Home of the Maple City dated for the nursing home sewage system located within the Miles Kimberly Park property no later than that whatever date we determine. Strike and work with the nursing home to determine a date. We want to set the date, or we want to have the recommendation.
Fully vacated
For-
by October 1 or something like that?
Whatever that, yes.
Okay.
This should say Parks and Recreation.
So October
Actually, I would
1st.
amend it to say County Board of Commissioners provide written
A written-
revocation.
Yes, that was
Written
what,
revocation of the license to Maple Valley.
Charlie, just so you know, this was a motion to get us through this meeting, and
Right.
if you agreed to it, then I was going to send it to council to come up with the correct verbiage for the board meeting.
Okay.
next
Does that make
Okay,
sense?
makes
That
sense,
way,
yes.
and they'll make sure that written, that was
Yeah.
the word I was looking for. That needs to be in there, right, I agree. Okay.
Are you looking for a date? I've heard October 1st, and that sounds,
That's 6 months or fall, whatever. And if,
5 months.
Seems like a compromise.
at this point,
Me
and
too.
hopefully we don't have to do anything further, but this has got to we got to light a fire under them somehow. I mean, even 6 months is too much in my opinion, but we're already stuck because I'm not interested in shutting them down either.
Right.
So,
well,
Laurel said you want a motion that you can give legal, or is this it?
this is it. I'll give it to legal. They'll refine it and prepare something for me to put in the packet for the meeting next week.
So you'll have it ready for them, we don't have to come back and vote on
No,
it?
no.
Okay,
So the motion is I move to recommend to the County Board of Commissioners to revoke the license to Maple Valley Nursing Home of Maple City Incorporated dated April 29, 2008 for the nursing home sewage system located within the Miles Kimberly Park property and vacate the system no later than October 1st, 2023.
I think that's okay, but instead of say I move, what about the Parks and Recreation Commission?
Well, an individual parks member makes the motion. So who made the motion?
I will make that motion as stated.
Yes.
Who is seconding it?
I'll support it.
Okay. There we go.
We got to vote on it?
Well, we do, is there any other discussion?
I'm not,
Hey, you got it?
you're gonna hear it again, but in the discussion part, I'm not in favor of it because John isn't here to defend it. That's all.
And my discussion is, I mean, I'd like us to say the specifics of the written notification of revocation, because it needs to be in writing, so that the
Right. We'll make sure that's in there for next week. That will be,
legal
that will
looks
be
at
the
it, it should say
official.
written.
Right. That's what he will have it there too. I agree.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed,
Aye.
motion carries. Moving on to capital improvement program submissions and review, or submissions review, 35 through 70.
I prepared a table that listed all the ones that are officially part of the Planning and Community Development's office for this plan program.
And at
And they're
those,
sorted in financial, low to high.
and at the Old Settlers Picnic Committee meeting yesterday, we agreed to submit the gazebo refurbishment, but for an amount of $40,000.
Right, I just didn't have a chance to update it. But you'll be doing that with
I will do that with
Trudy.
Trudy. I will
Yeah.
send her a revised
Yeah.
form.
I have a question.
Yes.
In the overall CIP, we've got some pretty tall numbers for each part, basically. And these numbers that we are giving won't supersede the other numbers. Am I correct? This is just a fine-tuned CIP addition?
This is just a rough.
Right, because I mean, there's,
By supersede, what do you mean, Steve?
well, I mean, there's, seems like Veronica has like $250,000 in the
Oh.
CIP, just and a laundry list of things.
Mm-hmm.
We wouldn't lose the 250,000 just because we've got less than 250 in this.
Yeah,
I guess I assumed it was superseding it,
Is it?
Steve.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't know where the 200 came from. And I didn't know that the laundry list was very,
Yeah, it's old.
yeah.
In the
It's old
forms
and
that
it was
we're
a guess.
submitting, we're submitting a cash flow for the next 5 years. And so that is a revision to what you had. If one of these projects lines up with an existing project, essentially, that's in the CIP, you're essentially just revising that. But if it's new,
I see.
you've got a new cash flow.
Okay, got it.
Is there any other discussion on that, or anything you want to point out, Laura? Just a review.
She doesn't want us to prioritize these by what we would like to happen. But generally happens is what can we afford to do this year, right?
Right.
And it's kind of my turn for my park, but, you know, priority, I've been pushing hard for that Miles Kimberly paved loop trail whenever I can, when we start talking about the ARPA dollars. I'm trying to get that gifted to us. And if we got that, that certainly would open up the door for some of these other projects.
So do we need a motion to essentially, that this committee endorses the submission of these CIP items to the planning department for inclusion in this year's CIP?
I guess it probably wouldn't hurt, and then I could just identify them in the motion.
That's my motion.
All right. Is there support for that?
Mm-hmm.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carried. Okay, the Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians, is 2% allocation update.
Yeah, we left that on the agenda. I talked to Dave. I think he's the only one whose park has indicated an interest in resubmitting an allocation request. Do any of the other committees, can they think of anything they'd like to?
If I may?
Go ahead.
We talked briefly yesterday about the poison ivy eradication at Old Settlers Park. And I wonder if that is something that would be of interest to the tribe at all. And I don't know, I have any idea what that would cost.
Yeah, I don't know how much it would cost, but we could probably pull that in under maintenance too.
You mean under maintenance this year for us just to pay for to look at? At least start? Okay, that's fine. Yep,
You know, it was a couple grand.
okay.
I don't-
Yeah, it's worth starting to get after that stuff, I
Yeah.
think.
Laurel.
Bran.
Brand.
Bran.
She'd be the one to contact.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else?
So, can you talk to Laurel? Cool.
Get an idea what it would cost or how much, maybe pick an area, how much that would cost or whatever. Look at it at least. Okay. Moving on to committee reports. We got Miles Kimmerly.
Yes. We haven't had a meeting since the last meeting, but just to let you know that the Board of Commissioners approved the $4,700 have the master plan for Miles Kimmerly Park be revamped, and we're in the process of doing that. That'll start soon. And the MK Park Committee is going to meet April 27th, 9 o'clock, to try to prioritize and firm up, from our point of view, the four of us, where we want to place things, where our priorities are for our different projects. Before we meet with Gosling, we have to give them some starting point. And so we're doing that, and then the proposed start date was it May 1st or April 1st? Anyway, it's got to be backed off anyway. But that's all I have to say.
Old Settlers Park Committee.
We did meet yesterday and reviewed the items that were in the 2020-2024 master plan to see where we were on accomplishing those before the plan runs out, or whether they're going to get removed from the plan. So we did, the gazebo refurbishment was included. There's a couple other items which we will process CIPs for in the future, but that's essentially that. But there is one additional action item to come before this board for a vote, and that is to recommend the acceptance of the Lanham donation and what will be accomplished with that donation. And I'm going to turn that over to Melinda.
Thank you. We had an old settler of Casson Township in Old Settlers Park picnic family pass away. That's the Lanhams, and we've discussed what they wanted to do with her memorial dollars. So we've already got, Laurel's checking on that for sure. I think we already have permission, even through the Board of Commissioners, I think it's gone that far, to buy one of the little bouncies. I think it's going to be a little ladybug bouncy for the children. And the other thing they would like to do is a fieldstone bench in memory of Nancy and her husband, John Lanham, that would be placed over in the garden area near the chapel. So in a quiet little area where people can sit and reflect. And they would like to do something identical to or almost identical to the fieldstone bench that sits there that's in memory of John and Connie Binsfield. And they're willing to use the same artist that built that one, if available, and they would pay the full shot. And they even have rocks off of their farm there on Castle Center Road that they would, give to the artist to use for the bench itself. So they're asking permission to allow them to build that type of a bench there, and not just do one of the the standard benches we've been providing for our park.
So they want to go one with a back.
Yeah, yep, just like Connie's, yep. A little flat bench, and it has a back and arms, and, yeah.
Do you have a motion for us?
Yeah, so I would make a motion that we allow the Lanham family to pay for and have built a fieldstone bench in memory of John and Nancy Lanham in the chapel area of the Old Settlers Park.
So you're recommending to the Board of
Yep,
Commissioners?
yep.
I'll support that motion.
And we would pick the spot. The park would pick where it would go. Mhm.
Is there, how many benches are there? Is this something that the park can use? I mean, I always see the value of a bench, but do we have a lot of benches at Old Settlers? I'm not familiar.
The one spot by the,
'Cause there's a built-in benches. They're just like bleacher benches. Not bleachers, but yeah.
Stone bench, and maybe
There's a number of wrought iron benches along the split rail fence.
yeah.
maybe not.
It's not something that would not fit or
Okay.
overuse the park, I guess. Especially in the area that they're asking for, there's not really much over there. And that, it's not a very used corner. That corner by the chapel is not, just kind of a quiet area or quiet corner. Go ahead, Steve.
Can we leave the nuts and bolts of how this is going to happen with regard to insurance and bids and all of that hoorah to the County Board of Commissioners to sort out?
Well, it's going to go to the Building and Grounds Committee.
And they'll figure all that
In
out.
fact, I pulled it
Okay,
tomorrow.
okay.
Because we have to
Ah,
hold
okay.
another Building and Grounds Committee meeting soon,
Yep.
and that would be the appropriate step to go there first, and then they would make their recommendations.
Look
to
at the
board.
nuts
So
and
that'll all
bolts.
get
Yeah.
ironed out. We
Yep.
don't have to bat that around. Okay.
We should not, no.
John?
I think it's a great idea. Didn't we pass a rule, though, that says all benches have to be this size with this brand from now on, so we don't have people coming with different stuff? Or was there an exception that said, except we can have the buildings and ground people, but there was something saying all benches from now on have to be the same?
The county board got an opinion from council that we can't have a formal donation policy, and that things had to come forward to the board on a case-by-case basis. So the board would have the opportunity to determine how they're going to approve things.
Something on that, though.
There was, we were working
Yeah.
on that, and then the
Yeah.
corporate overruled us and basically
Yes.
said, no,
Yeah.
you can't do that.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Because we were all trying to do it for each park.
Yeah, we went through this with Veronica.
Yeah.
What's that?
They suggested that we don't.
Yeah,
Right.
it was a suggestion.
And that, yes, and that we take it on a case-by-case basis.
And in this case, we have an exception sitting there.
Right.
Yes, we do.
So, I mean,
No, I'm for it.
how can we say no?
I just don't,
We could.
Yeah.
We get,
I just don't want someone showing up
we get
tomorrow
this one
with
in, we probably.
a red, white, and blue one, and another one, and another one wants a six-seater, and anyway.
And if it's not,
Sounds like a good idea.
it's a difficult situation to be put in when people are asking for to do a memorial donation in the park. And I was in favor of having the
Uniform?
structure, uniform, but then you still want to have the opportunity to make some exceptions if it fits. And this is something that's not over the top, but it's a complicated situation. John?
I still think it's a good idea to see a picture of what they're gonna do.
Sure.
I'm not against it, but I think to approve it,
I have a picture.
Should
I'm gonna
see
bring
it.
my phone today. Boy, I had a picture.
Do you have a picture of the one that's there?
It's a lovely, if I may, the Binsfield bench is lovely. And it
It's
just.
split stone.
It's split stone, yep, and it just fits right in there very nicely. And you see it used. It actually faces a lake that you can sit and watch sunsets. So.
It's very
um,
tasteful.
Yeah, very, very much so. So this wouldn't, as someone said, this wouldn't be out of line.
By the church, it wouldn't be very good to face the lake.
No, they were thinking more along the line of the reflection. So in the flower bed there, where you can just sit and be
Facing the
reflective.
chapel, probably.
Yeah. Nancy did a lot for the chapel and the Old Settlers picnic.
These are folks that go all the way back.
All the way
Linda was
back.
saying yesterday, all the way back
Their
to
family was at the
the
first.
original Old Settlers picnic.
Picnic, right. Just saying, saying at the chapel.
We do have a motion on the table for this bench.
Bring your own cushion.
Is there any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Anything else on the rules, Settlers?
Nope.
Veronica Valley.
We had Heather Hedinger attend our committee meeting earlier today, talking about the question of questions surrounding managing the weeds, invasive weeds in our ponds. We, by consensus, decided not to slow down, to pause any connection or any contract for services with Savin Lake Services, that was the spray company of 2 years ago. Because Heather gave us enough information for us to believe that we can manage the weeds in the pond ourselves more cheaply, but also perhaps even a better management in the sense of having spot treatment and having a mix of open space for fishing and weeds that are needed for the fish. Because the spraying that we did, regardless of how this happened, and I think part of the fault was mine in that I didn't understand what I was looking at, because I was the only representative of the parks when the spraying was done. In any case, it was just more than we needed, so we're looking at doing that ourselves with Scott's help. I mean, Scott's, well, obviously, he's our only manpower, but adding to that some possibilities of some volunteer manpower, managing the weeds by hand mechanically where we can for this year. Heather's basic recommendation was go one more year without any spraying. See how the plants have fully rebounded from over a year ago and what we're really looking at, and make further decisions next year. But that's going to be invasive species management, period. On land or in the water, it's ongoing. It's never a one-off. It's always going to be looking at how do we do this year? What do we need to do next year? So that was a large part of what we've done in the meeting for this month. We are going to have our walk around, our meeting at the park, April 25th of this month, and do some more discussion of that management. We will continue, if you recall, we've agreed to work with the Lake Association, at least in terms of bringing them into our discussions of how we manage our weeds, because they've had some concern about possibly Veronica Valley being a possible source for weeds in Lake Leelanau. What have I forgot?
Beaver.
We didn't talk about beaver. The dams are gone. It was a private individual, Al Zelensky, who is a friend of Don Clark's. I guess, Melinda, you know Al too, because you were the one who first pushed him onto me. He's apparently gone in on his own and pulled out both dams. Bravo.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Buy him a beer.
You'd probably like that.
No kidding. I think a case
Don-
would be in order.
Don Clark got at least one beaver. I failed to clarify if it was more than the one. He and Al felt that there was still one more. He thought it was a young one in there. But since the dams have been pulled, he hasn't seen a sign of the beaver. He's wondering if the beaver lodge was no longer protection because of the drop of the water level, so that beaver scooted or got caught by something else. But right now, the ponds are gone, and I presume that, I haven't gotten over there since talking to Don.
I went out there yesterday as well as last week, and there's been no change.
So the water levels,
Water levels
Down.
down, there's no activity on the dams.
Excellent.
good. That's all I have for right now.
Moving on to public comment. Steve?
I'm not really surprised that your attorney said that you don't have any legal responsibility. from our lease agreement. I interpreted it a different way, and I'm going to continue to interpret it that way. And so our organization is going to continue with our architect to make plans to have people legally in the building, which I believe is going to be a great amenity with the township park system, the county's park system. And we're going to continue on that. And whether you decide to help us fund that effort or not, we're going to go forward.
No other public comment? Any commissioner comments? No comments out of me. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So.
Is there support?
Support.
Support. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Laurel, thanks for all that, this whole thing, this whole